Let's look back at the worst trade made by any NBA team in I don't even know how long. People thought that the Rudy Gobert trade was bad. People think that the Mikal Bridges trade that just happened was horrible. But this one takes the title. It takes the cake as the worst one by a long shot. And of course, I am talking about the Chris Paul and Jordan Poole trade because oh my goodness, the Warriors paid so much to get Chris Paul and he's waived. He won't be on the Warriors roster next season. That's it. He's gone. And in the season that he was there, the Warriors lost in the play-in tournament and were a bad team all around. Even though he was supposed to be leading the second team, he averaged less than 10 and 6 a game, which for the supposed point guard is horrible. So, you know what? Let's just get right into it with the details of the trade. And that's going to be Golden State sending Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, Patrick Baldwin, a 2027 second, and 2030 first top 20 protected. Now, the main reason that the Warriors made this trade, of course, was to get Chris Paul, but it was also to offload Jordan Poole's contract, which it was practically a salary dump, but at the same time they were expecting a bit more from Paul. So I'm just going to put on that lens to start with because ultimately they did achieve their goal. Now they have more cap space, but who are they going to even sign with this cap space? And if we look at the other players attached to this trade, Jordan Poole, obviously, he didn't have the best season in Washington, but he's a young guy. He definitely has room to grow. And as a Golden State fan, yes, I do feel hurt by saying that I did want him gone, but I wasn't expecting him to be gone for so little. Then, of course, Ryan Rollins, he's a G League player. He might eventually become something, but I'm going to be totally honest and say that he's just not a good player. Patrick Baldwin Jr., on the other hand, was a decently good player in his time with the Warriors. He didn't play too many games. He mainly closed out games as one of those scrubs who just come off the bench. And honestly, he didn't really play in Washington. But you know what? He's still a player. He's still a young player who has potential, who can develop into something, and the Warriors really had no reason giving him up. Additionally, he's a center, and the Warriors have needed a center for God knows how long, so that was kind of an unnecessary loss. Next, a 2027 second round pick. Now, this doesn't sound great, and you know what? I'm just going to go out and say that it's not great, but 2027 is in 3 years. If the Warriors try to contend right now, look, in 3 years, they're not going to be a good team. They might be a good team next year if they can trade for a good player. Obviously, Paul George is off the board, but Lauri Markkanen might still be up there. But at the same time, that 2027 second, it's probably going to be a top 40, 45 pick, assuming that, of course, they do become that bad. So it didn't really make sense trading this pick away when we've already been paying so much just to get Chris Paul that this pick, it just didn't need to be attached. And then, of course, the last pick, which is a first round pick. However, asterisk on that, it's a top 20 protected first round pick, which means that if the Warriors do become a top 10 team, then they keep that pick. And top 10 record wise. So if they're the top 5 seed in the Western Conference. Now, that's questionable. For the year 2030, okay, look, it's the NBA. We don't really know what's going to happen by 2030 at all. Obviously, 2030 isn't a long time, but Steph Curry will be retired. I can guarantee you that. Kuminga may or may not be on this team. If he's still on this team and he's still progressing, then, the Warriors keep this pick. But if the pick falls into the top 20, which means the Warriors are part of the bottom 20 teams in in the league, which is obviously the majority. It's 66% of the league that's in the bottom 20. Then honestly, they lose a first round pick. It's just not good. There was no reason for the Warriors to attach these picks on, and honestly, it doesn't really make sense. However, However, this this thing is really important, and I mentioned this earlier that it was just a salary dump, and now instead of having negative $37 million in cap space for the next few years, the Warriors only have negative $7 million in cap space, and negative 7 million sounds like a lot, but I mean Steph Curry's being paid $50 million a year. $7 million in the grand scheme of things for these NBA teams is not a lot, even though it sounds like a ton for people like me and you. Now, if the Warriors do ultimately decide to trade Andrew Wiggins, or you know what, maybe they already did. I'm recording this in a rush. Then they will be out of the luxury tax in the first time in a very, very, very long time. And obviously, that would be great for the Warriors. That means that obviously they were a second apron team just last season, which is absolutely crazy to hear. And once they're out of the luxury tax, you know what? They can make some trades. They can potentially get, I mean, they can make some signings in free agency. The free agency signings, I mean, obviously free agency just opened today, so I'm not really sure who's going where, but obviously Paul George isn't going to warrant $20 million. He's going to warrant much more, but other slightly less good players might be inclined to join the Warriors, especially since they're a contending team. And honestly, you could, I mean, someone like Gary Trent could join the Warriors. Obviously, they don't really need too many guards, and I'm kind of just waiting on the Brandon Ingram trade to happen. I just need that to happen already. But if you look at the trade as, I mean, what it was meant to be, a salary dump, it ended up being pretty good. If you look at it by wanting the Warriors to compete, it was a horrible trade. And if I could go back in time and stop it, I would. But that's all for today. Tell me what you guys think about this trade and whether or not it was actually one of the worst in NBA history. Because obviously, I can think of a few others, like the Kevin Garnett trade, but you know what? At least the Nets got something in return. The Warriors got a 39-year-old expiring contract. Come on. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.